Hey guys, so we're moving on to the next set of notes in Unit 5, and this one is going to talk about all about graphing lines. So now that we learned how to plot points in the coordinate plane, now we are going to learn how to graph lines in the coordinate plane. So first thing before we start on graphing line is we got to learn about what the slope of a line represents. So notice up here that I have the slope of the word slope slanted downwards, okay? And I have a little skier on top. That's telling you that the slope of something, the slope of a line, is the slant of the line, right? It's how it is slanted. So sometimes it may be slanted downwards, sometimes it may be slanted upward, but that tells you what the slope of the line is. Also, it's important to note that the slope represents the rate of change of the line. So slopes should be written as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, so slopes are written as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, so it's important to note that there are 4 different types of slopes. Okay, and these are the 4 slopes that I have pointed out below. So when you see a line going up from left to right, like in your first picture, that is an example of a positive slope because it is going up from left to right. Okay. When you see an example of a line going down, like in our second picture from left to right, since that line is going down, it has a negative slope. We call that a negative slope because it is going down from left to right. When you see a picture of a line that is just straight up and down, there is no slant to it at all, then that is an example of an undefined slope because there is no slant to that slope at all. So that slope would be called undefined. And then when you see an example of a line that goes straight across where there is no slope and there is no changing going on, then that slope is called a zero slope, or that one has a zero slope, okay? So the slope of something we use to represent the slope of something in an equation as m. So when I'm talking about the slope of something in an equation, it's whatever value the m is, and the slope is equal to rise over run. And what I mean by that is the rise of something is the difference in y's, okay? How much up or down did we go? And the run of something is the difference in x's, how much left or right did we go? So in order to remember the 4 types of slopes, I'm just going to quickly show you a Mr. Slope guy, okay? And this is something that you could always write on your paper. So if you can't remember the positive, negative, undefined, or zero slopes, you can use Mr. Slope guy to help you out. So Mr. Slope guy has a positive slope is going up from left to right. So a positive slope goes up from left to right. A negative slope goes down from left to right. A up and down or a vertical slope is undefined. So you put a U for undefined. And then a horizontal line has a slope of 0. So that is a Mr. Slope guy if you wanted to use that to remember positive, negative, undefined, and 0 slopes. So slopes is rise over run. So there are a couple different ways to find a slope of a graph. You can either use what is known as the slope formula, which you may have seen before. The slope formula is when you have 2 ordered pairs that are given to you, and you're going to subtract the y's on top and then divide it by the difference or the subtracting of the x's on the bottom. So that's if you're given 2 ordered pairs. Let's say that your 2 ordered pairs were given to you here, where this is my x1 value, this is my x2 value, and then this is my y1 value and my y2 value, okay? So that's an example if you're given ordered pairs. If you're given a picture of a graph like the next one, then to find the slope on that one, you're just going to count the rise, how many up did I go, and then the run, how many right or left did I go, okay? So you're going to start at one of your points and you're going to count. So if I start at this leftmost point, first I'm going to count how many did I rise till I got to my second point, and then how many did I run till I got to my second point. So if I look at this closely, I notice that I went up 3. So I know I have a positive 3 here, and I ran to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a positive 4. So that tells me that my slope, also known as my m in this equation, is 3, since it was positive, over 4. They are both positive, so this particular line has a slope of 3 over 4. Rise over run. Remember, slope is always rise over run, so you can count it. So let's try a couple more examples where you are asked to find the slope of a graph of a line, okay? So sometimes they will give it to you in ordered pairs. So in the first one, it says use the slope formula to find the slope of the line that passes through the 2 points. So according to the slope formula, remember, the formula is this. M, which represents the slope, is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1, okay? So remember, ordered pairs are always separated into y and x. The x's are what comes first, so we've got -7 and 9, and the y's are what comes second, so you've got 2 and 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract those to put them in our equation. So we have the y's on top, 2 minus 6 are our y values, all over -7 minus 9, because those are our x values. And then from here we solve. 2 minus 6 is -4, and we just do our arithmetic here. And -7 minus 9 is -16. From here, I'm not quite done because I want to make sure I write it in simplest form. I know that both 4 and 16, first of all, a double negative becomes a positive. And I know that both 4 and 16 can be divided by 4. Right? So if I divide them both by 4, I'm left with positive 4 divided by 4 is 1 over 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So my answer here is a slope of 1/4. In the next one, it wants you to find the slope of the line based on the graph. So this one is going to be counting. So remember, the slope of a line is rise over run, right? So that means that I'm going to start at one of my points and I'm going to count how many. If I start at my left point and I want to count till how many down I went to the left one, to the next point, I went down a number. So that tells me I'm going to go down. I went down 5 notches, so I'm going to call that a -5 because I went down. So that tells me that in my slope, when I write my slope, my top number is -5 because I went down 5 over. And then how many did I run from this point to the next one? I went to the right 2 notches, so that's a +2 in the bottom. So my slope here would be -5 over 2. And that makes sense because that line is going down from left to right, so it's negative. So let's try another example using the slope formula again. Okay? So if I use the slope formula to find the next one in the next example, remember I'm going to subtract my y's first, and then I'm going to subtract my x's and put them on the bottom. Okay? So ready? M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the y's are what I highlighted in blue, and the x's are what I highlighted in red. So we have m equals -3 minus -3, because those are my two y values, all over -5 minus 6, because those are my two x values. And if I use my arithmetic to solve, double negative becomes a positive. -3 plus 3 is 0 over -5 minus 6 is -11. The bottom number doesn't even matter here because 0 divided by anything is 0. So this is an example of a slope equaling 0, which, if you recall from the previous page of notes, 0, when the slope is 0, this is a horizontal line. This is a line that goes straight across, right? So notice what they have in common. They both have the same y value. So if y's are the same, and then you have the slope of a horizontal line, which is 0. So if the y's are the same in an ordered pair, then the slope is 0. Okay? Let's look at our second example. In the next example, we have that the x's are both 6, and the y's, we have 6 and -1. If I plug those into my equation, I have m equals, I'm going to do the y's first, 6 minus -1 all over 6 minus 6. Well, 6 minus -1 becomes a double negative becomes a positive, so it becomes 7 all over 6 minus 6 is 0. When you have 0 in the bottom of a fraction, that is considered undefined. It is, if you were to plug this into your calculator, it would bring up an error. So the slope here would be undefined. So remember, from the previous lesson, this is the slope of a vertical line. So the slope of a vertical line is undefined, right? And if you notice what they have in common here, the x values are the same in these ordered pairs. So if the x's are the same in your ordered pairs, this is your little trick, then your slope is undefined. If the y's are the same in your ordered pairs, then your slope is automatically 0. Okay? So those are the tricks or the ways to remember how to solve for the slope in the easier equations, right? So you use the slope formula if you're given ordered pairs, and then if you have a picture of a graph, you count it out. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.